Good evening. I would like to call to order the July 11, 2023 Little Rock City Board of Directors meeting. I'd like to welcome those that are in attendance as well as those watching at home or streaming online. Madam Clerk, if you would, please call the roll.
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Richardson.
Here.
Director Peck. Director Hines. Director Lewis. Here. Director Wyrick.
Present.
Director Compuris. Director Phillips. Director Adcock. Vice Mayor Webb. Here. Mayor Scott.
Here. Let me now recognize City Director Andrea Lewis to do the invocation.
Wrong one, Mayor. Her voice is kind of out.
Oh, your voice is out?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Unfortunately. I would suggest, suggest Director Miller.
Director Miller.
All right, will you just pause with me for a moment of silence as we get our hearts and our minds ready for our invocation? Today, we want to give thanks for your attendance here. We want to give thanks for all of our workers, all of our city staff, all our administrators, all our first responders, all those who make our city the great city that it is. We want to thank our directors for their work here and giving of their time. We want to thank all those who are here today to share their thoughts, the citizens that are involved, who make this city the great city that it is. We want to thank all of you for your participation, because without your participation, we would not be the city that we are. And we also want to just take a minute to pray for those who have lost their lives to gun violence that seems to be in the news more and more and more. And we pray that we do things that will make our city a safer place and make our residents a safer place, and pray for those who have to go out and do the things to make our city safe. We pray this prayer for all those in our city, and we give it with thanksgiving in our hearts. Amen.
Amen. Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have one modification for today's agenda. That's M1, support of a diversionary treatment programs operated in treatment programs operate in the district court. Do we have a motion
So move.
to the consent agenda? There's a motion from Director Adcock, a second from Director Richardson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda along with item M1.
The consent agenda consists of a resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Cranford Construction Company in an amount not to exceed $2,718,080.40 for street resurfacing within the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes, funding from the limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Cromwell Architects Engineers in an amount not to exceed $64,850 for architectural and engineering services for the landfill truck washing project and for other purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with G&W Diesel Service Incorporated, an amount not to exceed $8,394,186 plus applicable taxes and fees for the purchase of 7 Pierce pumper trucks and 1 Pierce ladder tiller truck for the Little Rock Fire Department, and for the purposes funding from the limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds. A resolution to amend resolution number 15,800 of October 3rd, 2022, and to authorize the city manager to modify the contract with the Gulf State Distributors to increase the contract purchase amount of $103,340.30 plus applicable taxes and fees for the purchase of additional service weapons for the Little Rock Police Department and for the purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Block by Block, an SMS Holdings company, in amount not to exceed $500,000 for the Downtown Ambassador Program and for the purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Carl Hoffsoft Technologies Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $175,000 plus applicable taxes and fees to facilitate the purchase of Xtero FOIA software and for the purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Vines Media LLC, doing business as Vines Brookshire, in the amount not to exceed $302,400 plus applicable taxes and fees to provide media and marketing services for the Little Rock Zoo and for the purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Landscape Structures Incorporated in amount not to exceed $730,000 for construction services of a new playground in Boyle Park and for the purposes. A resolution to support substance abuse program for diversionary treatments operated in the Little Rock State District Court First Division to declare that the city of Little Rock, Arkansas will fulfill its obligations to the court and for other purposes. That concludes the consent agenda.
Move for the adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. We'll now go into citizens' communication. Mr. Marvis Bogar? Marvis Bogar? Mrs.
Hello, I'm Marvis Bogan, and I'm complaining on auxiliary arms. Like, okay, they said my son broke into a house that he never went in, but you gonna put me out and my son don't even stay with me. And plus, I got some more planes. My neighbors, their houses is molding. They won't come in and do nothing about it. And now they trying to go in and paint over mold. You cannot go in and paint over mold.
Yes, ma'am. Raven, Fitzpatrick. Allie, you'll restart.
Hi, my name is Raven Fitzpatrick, and I'm here to complain on auxiliary arms. Well, basically, they're not fixing anything. They have us living in mold. I've been staying there for 2 years now, and I've been complaining about my bathroom and stuff. My bathtub is peeling. There's mold all on my ceiling. And basically, they're not trying to help us or anything. They just got us up out there staying in the field. And I'm pretty sure they wouldn't even want to stay up in it, but yeah, they're not trying to help us with anything or anything.
Thank you so much.
Mayor, can you actually repeat the name of that facility? I didn't hear the name of it.
Exor Arms.
Zor Arms.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sean Whitfield.
Hello, my name is Sharon Whitfield, and I live in Exor Arms. I have came up here once before to tell you all about the apartments. I've been living out there ever since 2021 or 2020, and it still has mold in the walls, in the vents of the apartments. My daughter has asthma, but no, it was before, but she was born with asthma. The mold is getting really bad. It's inside the walls of the apartments. I don't recommend for anyone to ever have to live in Exor Arms. It's very unfit. The manager, Chelsea Jackson, she has no care in the world about what's going on out there or the things that are happening out there. I'm standing here today to let you all know that 9101 Auxiliary Road Auxiliary Arms apartments, I feel as if they need to be torn down. That's my personal vote. It's not my say-so, but it's my vote because it's disgusting. Just because we ask for a place to live does not mean that they should have the right to just give us anything. We didn't ask to just be thrown a place to live. And it's not fair just because we asked for somewhere to live. And I feel as if we're being treated unfair. That's really all that I have to say.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sharon. This is Annette Ireland.
The concern of the board is moving.
Good evening. My issue today is I live on Greenwood Acres Boulevard, and there is a drainage ditch that flows through the neighborhood. When I bought the property over 9 years ago, I was told that the city was going to make that concrete drainage ditch, and that hasn't happened. There have been discussions about it, but since that time, the property is eroding, and my privacy fence, it's eroded all the soil around, and you can even see where they poured the concrete. The fence is falling backwards, as many of my neighbors, and it's been a hazard. There are snakes coming out. Hadn't seen snakes at first, and my property stays wet. It's wet back there all the time, and I was trying to figure out what was it, and then I didn't know because I couldn't see behind the fence that small drainage ditch is now a wide ditch full of tadpoles and snakes and a lot of vegetation and everything. And that's what we were here about today, to see if anything could be done about that, because it was built during the time of construction, and that was supposed to be corrected after construction, and it's making a bad situation out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ireland. Mr. Luke Scrable.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me the privilege to exercise my First Amendment rights. I'm so glad I'm not up here complaining about a mold problem, because I don't take getting blown off as easy as these deserving folks behind me of your representation. I am here, seeing the mayor never explains to the audience or to the audience at home what the subject of the people that have something to comment about. So I'm here to ask, how does elected directors ignoring their oaths of office, a code of ethic, benefit the Little Rock taxpayers? Now, for over now 21 years and 7 months, Ms. Adcock, I've been sending you emails, over 8,000, with at least 5,000 city records showing government corruption, asking you in 8,000 emails, along with you, Ms. Wyrick, and Dr. Compuris, and the other directors, can you use your public authority given you by us, the voters, and when we authorize your employment with a tax-funded paycheck, and then you ignore the law? You sign an oath of office saying you're going to uphold the Constitution of the United States, Ms. Peck, but your first official vote when you came into office was to strip me of my First Amendment rights. I don't know if people know this, but I'm born in Houston, Texas. That makes me a born in America American, and I'm a Texan. The only thing would have made me more legit if my mama would have squatted down behind the Alamo and dropped me in the dirt. Nobody in this room had the right, after you signed your oath of office, to strip me of my First Amendment rights. In so doing, you violated my 14th Amendment rights for 40 months, Ms. Peck. So, I'm going to come over the next 11 meetings to find out why my directors will sit in silence and Mount Rushmore me. Mount Rushmore in you is when you sit in silence and act like your heads are made of stone, like Mount Rushmore. You don't say nothing, you don't see nothing and you don't hear nothing. You will sit in silence and take that check on Friday that we're forced to pay you. Ms. Adcock, you signed an oath of office 29 times. I've showed you so many evidence of lying, cheating, stealing from the taxpayers. You operate in a church, I would think you'd well know all of the 10 Commandments, especially the 8th and 9th. Not stealing, not lying.
Mr. Scrable,
Yes, sir.
your time is up.
Thank you, Mayor Sharpton.
Thank you so much. Be blessed. Shalonda Woods.
Hi, yes, my name is Shalonda Woods, and I'm coming from the old 65th Street, the old Spanish John Apartments. That now the name is Village 65th, and I've been over there for about like 4 years. We having some complaints about the roaches, the hot water. That we have our water, but we don't have no hot water, no gas over there. That's been going on for like 2 months. I'm on housing, and I have my child, my daughter, and we can't even cook or nothing, or gas, no hot water. Our washer and dryers that's started by the office. We can't even wash clothes or nothing. We have to go to the laundromat. Some of us is disabled, like the elderly people up there. They can't get there. We can't even check our mailbox. We have to go to the post office. We have mow as well. We got potholes. When you go through the gates, we have 2 gates. And you have the enter gate, then you have the exit gate. On the side where the exit gate is, the chain is off. You got holes, they got bullet holes inside some of the windows. Some in the abandoned apartments that you have, it's just holes in the walls. The bathrooms are like got mold, and the tub is all clogged up. The shooting out there, my kids don't feel it's unsafe, and it's like we paying rent there, and it's just like for me to live out there, it's just like. I'm not saying that it needs to be closed down. I'm just thinking that they need to do more, and Cole needs to come out, or they need to reach out to someone, or we just need help over there. That the management, and nobody ain't doing nothing about it. And this is over there on 65th.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Norma Huffman.
You guys already know who I am. I've been here several times. And you know, I was raised to respect my elders. But all due respect, y'all ain't doing y'all's damn job. I have asked repeatedly for you guys to help, and all you do is talk. I have yet to see any kind of action. My son and I are still out there at Big Country. There's still disabled people at Big Country. You guys say y'all give a damn. I don't see it. I don't see anything. All I see is you talking. I don't see any kind of action. There's only been one person that works for the city that has actually reached out to me outside these walls. One person. I've been told by several of you, straight to my face, that you are gonna help. All I see is lies. I am fed up. You know, I watched a couple of the videos of when I was here last. And I told you guys I was on heart medicine. I am now on double heart medicine. I cannot breathe inside that apartment again if you guys don't help. It is going to be a bad day in hell if my son finds me dead.
Thank you. Kendrick Franklin.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Mayor. I'm here for Greenwood Homeowners Association, but they couldn't be here because of the change of time of the meeting, because we were thinking it was 6 o'clock. They told us 4 o'clock. And so they asked me to come at the last minute. We're speaking about brand new homes that was built, that the city allowed them to build these homes with improper drainage. The correct drainage is there at the beginning of our neighborhood, but when they came in, they put in trenches in our backyard. Trenches. They put in trenches in our backyard. And in some yards, they didn't even put in trenches. They got a steady water flow in their backyard. And what I want to address, the yards are eroding. People have bought fences. My neighbor is here. She bought a fence. It was 3 feet from the trench. Now it's a ditch, and her fence is in the ditch. Why are developers able to come in and build houses without improper drainage? And if we continue, I won't be here to see it, but if we don't come in and put improper drainage, because I've known, I talked to other people, it was a flood area, and they allowed them to build houses in the flood area. And if we don't get, if the city don't go in and put proper drainage in there, it's going to be, our backyards are just going to be a lake. And Rosh Coleman came in one lady's yard, the one that they didn't even put a trench in there. She just got a steady water flow in her backyard, and Rosh Coleman came out and built her a bridge so she can walk so she can walk over the water flow. There should have been a proper drainage before the houses was even built. And now we are suffering. Our fences are being destroyed. Our yards are being destroyed. And it's just a flood. It's just a flood back there. All I'm saying is, just please, can we get proper drainage? Because I want my grandson to go out and have a good time in the backyard without having to wade in water. But now that's what we face with. And we've been addressing this for 8 years. I've been there 10 years, but we've been addressing this. It got lost in the shuffle. They say they switched jobs, and we had just addressed this, and they're saying that, well, we ain't got funding for y'all now. We'll put y'all on in 2 more years, but we've been addressing this for 8 years. So now Ms. Warwick said, we will address it 2 years from now. But we've been talking about this day one when I moved in. I said, this is not going to work. This is a trench. They should have put proper drainage in our neighborhood. It affects Java Court, it affects Jake Court, and it also affects Greenwood Acres Road. And like I said, we just want to live comfortable like everybody else. That's all. And I'm here for Greenwood Acres. And there have been a lot more people here today. If the meeting would have been on scheduled time, there'd have been a lot of people here. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Members of the board, will now, Madam Clerk, you'll read the grouped items.
My hand is up.
Sorry, Director Robert.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the Greenwood Acres folks coming out today. I met with them about a month ago and set it up for them to come tonight to talk to the board and Citizens Communications. And I wasn't sure that they were coming, but I got an email today saying they were coming, and I realized that it was at 4 o'clock versus 6 o'clock. But I've been out there and looked at the area, and I have got a meeting set up with Mr. Moore and some other members of the staff for August the 11th at 9 o'clock at Greenwood Acres. And I'll send that information to the neighborhood president so we can have a group of people that'll be there
August 11th at 9 o'clock.
at 9 o'clock. But I just got it confirmed today, so I will send it to the neighborhood president.
I may join you.
Okay, you're invited.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, now, Madam Clerk, you would please read the group items.
An
An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-2A1 of 1988 to provide for the adoption by reference of the 2021 Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, Volume 1, Fire, with Arkansas amendments, and for other purposes, an ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-2A2 of 1988 to provide for the adoption by reference of the 2021 Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, Volume 2, Building, with Arkansas amendments, and for other purposes, an ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-2A3 of 1988 to provide for the adoption by reference of the 2021 Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, Volume 3, Residential, with Arkansas amendments, and for the purposes, an ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-2A9 of 1988 to provide for the adoption by reference of the 2021 International Existing Building Codes, and for the purposes, an ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to authorize the city manager to execute a sole source agreement with the Pulaski County Imagination Library in amount not to exceed $70,000 to promote early childhood literacy, and for the purposes, an ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 32, Article 6, Section 32-318 of 1988, stopping, standing, parking of buses when the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, to declare an emergency, and for the purposes, first reading.
To suspend the rules and place on second reading.
There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An article to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-2A1 to provide for the adoption by reference of the 2021 Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, Volume 1, Fire, with Arkansas amendments. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-2A2 of 1988 to provide for the adoption by reference of the 2021 Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, Volume 2, Building, with Arkansas amendments. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-2A3 to provide for the adoption by reference of the 2021 Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, Volume 3, Residential, with Arkansas amendments. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-2A9 to provide for the adoption by reference of the 2021 International Existing Building Code. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to authorize the city manager to execute a sole source agreement with the Pulaski County Imagination Library in an amount not to exceed $70,000 to promote early childhood literacy. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 32, Article 6, Section 32-318, stopping, standing, parking of buses within the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, to declare an emergency, and for other purposes, second reading.
To suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
Second.
There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-2A1 to provide for the adoption by reference of the 2021 Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, Volume 1, Fire, with Arkansas amendments. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-2A2 to provide for the adoption by reference of the 2021 Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, Volume 2, Building, with Arkansas amendments. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-2A3 to provide for the adoption by reference of the 2021 Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, Volume 3, Residential, with Arkansas amendments. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-2A9 to provide for the adoption by reference of the 2021 International Existing Building Code. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to authorize the city manager to execute a sole source agreement with the Pulaski County Imagination Library in amount not to exceed $70,000 to promote early childhood literacy. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Revised Code, Chapter 32, Article 6, Section 32-318, stopping, standing, parking of buses within the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, to declare an emergency. Third and final reading.
Members of the board, we've had three readings. Any questions? Members of the board, we had three readings. Any questions? Members of the board, we've had three readings. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. We have an emergency clause. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the item for the first time Item 15.
Public hearing.
Sorry about that. Public hearing is open. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the first item.
An ordinance to abandon the east 15 feet of the Polk Street right-of-way located adjacent to Lot 7, Block 20, Newton's Addition at 5423 Country Club Boulevard in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for the purposes, first reading.
We suspend the rules and place on second reading.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
Who was the second?
Second was Director Land Signs, correct?
Yes, second.
Thought I heard you murmur.
An ordinance to abandon the east 15 feet of the Polk Street right-of-way located adjacent to Lot 7, Block 20, Newton's Addition at 5423 Country Club Boulevard. Second reading.
We suspend the rules and place on third and final.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance to abandon the east 15 feet of the Polk Street right-of-way located adjacent to Lot 7, Block 20, Newton's Addition at 5423 Country Club Boulevard. Third and final reading.
Seeing no questions from members of the board, seeing no comments, seeing no questions from members of the board, seeing no comment, we'll now close this hearing. Members of the board, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Before we adjourn this board meeting and swiftly transition to the agenda meeting, Mr. Moore, if you could re-update the board on Big Country Chateau, and then also if we'll ask Director Howard to look into the issues we heard today on Exora Arms Apartments.
Yes, sir. Latter first, we have Exora Apartments has been on our radar for a while, and I don't want to rehash what we have talked about the last few weeks, both collectively and individually, but that's what we're dealing with. We have the owners in environmental court. So that's up right there on Big Country. Again, we are attempting to find a third party that will help assist the residents that are there. The receiver wants it closed. We want it closed. The issue is that residents aren't paying utilities. They aren't paying any rent. So we would also have to come up with, and Freddie Mac initially said they would help with upfront rent, but now the latest we heard was that they would only help with relocation. So we're basically in a situation where the receiver does not want to close the apartment down. We're also in a situation where there are residents who don't want to move. That's the bottom line. So we felt, even though we have those police powers, that we would try to work with a third-party agency to help facilitate. I could draw a circle around 5-mile radius here. There are 35 different apartments that we could move these individuals into. But after 6 months, let's say we're able, and we'd have to work with Mr. Carpenter because he is always opined that we can't give residents money directly. So we would have to develop some type of partnership with that particular group that they would be moving into. So that's where we are on both cases.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Director Hines, then Director Richardson.
2 items Bruce, I'd like a little follow-up on, can you find out where we are in ordering the new bulletproof vests for LRPD officers? They were fitted in December and still have yet to take delivery on them. I don't know if it's held up in purchasing or what seems to be the holdup. I've been told from police officers that our quartermasters turned it in and some reason it has not been executed. So I'd like a little follow-up on that. And then also, can you get me follow-up on where we are with the developer who's destroyed Chenal Valley Drive and the construction of the apartments? I had heard one story. We had an agreement that once the construction project was done, the developer on that project would be returning the roadway to its previous condition. I have since heard that that's not the case, and it looks like the city's going to be on the hook. It continues to deteriorate and needs to be addressed immediately. In fact, there's a large pothole in front of the Orlay neighborhood. I'd like that added to the list to see if we can't get that fixed before the end of the week. At least get in there and do some patching. It's on Chenal Valley Drive, the northern terminus of it, between, I forget, it's either Orlay and Fox Ridge is the senior development. I don't know what the apartments that are west of that are called, but that whole section in there has just been torn up by that multifamily development that they moved all of the earth to put in. So I think Public Works is well aware of it. But we need to get something, at least get our crews out there to do some serious large patching in some areas. As much rain as we're getting, it continues to deteriorate. I think it's getting lost in the shuffle. Thank you.
Director Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, I want to follow up on your request and thank Mr. Moore for his report and his update on Azura Arms. But it seems to me, since I've been on this board, we've had some of the same facilities under different names come before us. And Tom, is it true when there's a change of ownership, as the mayor made reference to them being in environmental court, when there's a change of ownership, does the clock start over again, or are we able to continue? I mean, it's been too confusing for me because it could be Butler Street, Spanish Johns, Jamestown, or so sometimes it's the same facility with a different name, a different ownership. And I've been told that when there's a change in ownership, the clock starts all over again with respect to us and our enforcement authority and our ability to keep them. We have a new owner of a facility that's already in environmental court. What happens with that? I mean, we've heard about these facilities. They're the same ones over and over and over again. And I share their frustration. So does that happen from a legal standpoint when there's a change in ownership with respect to these code violations and things that people are complaining about? What happens? It does, Bruce?
When there's a change in ownership, the person who purchased it knowing what the condition is or is responsible for doing that, and the person that it's offering the property for purchase has a responsibility to let them know what the condition is. So in the sense that they should know what's going on, the answer is...
Well, let me make it clear.
Finish your answer, though, is that, yeah, they should know about it, but if there's actually a change in ownership, we've got to serve the new owners. They get a new 7 days, and then we go through that process.
So in one respect, it does kind of gives them a little bit more time. I mean, you said you get a new 7 days. I'm just saying with respect from the city's authority, our ability, our bully pulpit to put some kind of level of enforcement on these facilities, because they seem to be like they're the same facility. They're coming before us with different names.
Yeah, we have come across that numerous times. I think one of the things I pointed out in the memorandum is that if you're really going to take care of that thing, you need to have the policy decision that it's going to cost money, and are you willing to pay it?
I would like for your advice on that, sir, on how to proceed with that. I mean, I know that you got a lot on your plate, but with respect to moving forward and finding the quickest way, the most effective way to bring some resolution to these issues. They're not new. They're before us, and we've heard them since I've been on this board. I'm sure before I got on this board, and from the same people about the same facilities that's under different names. So I would like to either have a memo or some kind of letter of recommendation on how we proceed to address this from a proactive standpoint and a standpoint that's going to make it more effective for us to help meet the needs of our constituents. This is, we can't say this is new. This is something that we've just heard. We're hearing the same people, and we're seeing the same people, and we're talking about, for the most part, the same facilities. They're under different names. Now, I've been told, and whether I'm correct or incorrect on that, that when they're change of ownership, it buys them some more time, additional time in environmental court. So that's why we keep having these problems.
We always ask some environmental court, even with the change of ownership, not to grant additional time. We have not been very successful.
I got you. Well, thank you for that. And I will be visiting with you on that shortly, sometime this week, hopefully, to get some counsel on. And if it's a policy decision, I don't have a problem sponsoring some legislation to move forward with to address this in a more effective way. Excuse me, because it doesn't seem like we're doing it now. I don't have a problem with sponsoring any kind of policy, whether it's, and I, of course, would rely on you to help me craft that or draft that. But I will be visiting with you about some policy recommendations to move forward on this.
Well, let me just say that I would meet with the entire group every 2 weeks. And as we're going down the list, I see a new name. And I'm like, well, is this an addition? And they said, no, this is the old St. John.
Right.
And so we don't follow, I guess, what Tom is saying as far as recommending. We just continue to enforce because it's the same. You change the name, but it's the same management company. So I mean, literally every 2 weeks there's a new name on the list. And I'm like, well, where did this come from? They said, well, Bruce, this is X. And so we continue our enforcement.
I agree, Bruce, and I share your frustration that I hear in your voice. And I think what I'm hearing from Tom is that there needs to be a policy decision that we need to make from up here.
I think there's two things. I totally agree with Mr. Moore that we continue the enforcement and do what we do. If we get into an actual new owner, that there has been a new deed filed with their name on it, because Arkansas is a notice state and not a simply creating a document. So which means if I buy your house and give you the money and you give me a deed, until I record that deed, the deed is still in your name and you still own the house regardless. So, and then the notice is given when I file the deed of record and say, this is my house. So the enforcement doesn't stop. That we're trying to enforce doesn't stop. But if we end up getting an absolute new owner, then changing the name ain't going to do it, but changing the ownership is going to do it.
Thank you, Director Miller.
I'm one more on that, Mayor, because I just think that we're having the same misery merchants that capitalize on the misery of some of our constituents. And I think collectively we need to make a decision in terms of whether or not we want to adopt some policy, Tom or Bruce, figure out some kind of way to enhance what it is that we're doing or supposed to be doing or trying to do to help these people. Like you said, and as I said in my opening question, Mayor, they're the same buildings, it's just different names, the same facilities. And like you said, every 6 months you get this new name, but it's the same building. And if we know this, what can we do proactively? For some of you people up here smarter than me, help me figure this out. Help me figure out a way to help these people who are here asking for our help and who need our help. And that's it on that, Mayor.
Director Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a few comments about July 4th, because I'm sure I'm not the only board member that received so many phone calls about fireworks in the city. And of course, I know that the city does preemptive things. I appreciate our 911 director, our chief of police, and our fire chief for the public service announcement, employing the citizens not to pop fireworks in the city. But I received so many phone calls and got so much pressure from citizens that called to say, will you say something about it? And so I'm here just to say something publicly that hopefully we can get a post-July 4th report maybe from our police showing maybe hot spots, maybe what we have done, what we tried to do preemptively, what we'll be doing preemptively going forward, perhaps. And I know it's just a tough problem because I know citizens, taxpaying citizens who pop fireworks in their yards. They know it's it's against the ordinance, but they just say, well, I'll just pop them in my yard. We have so many people that ignore the ordinance, and then we have people that really abuse, what's going on when it comes to fireworks in our city. And with the number of phone calls that I'd received, they're saying, will you say something about it? Will you show us what the city's doing? And I just want to give Mayor, our police department, maybe some other meeting, a chance to say, this is what we've done. Maybe there's a heat map, a hot map that we can show where a lot of this took place. But again, just something to show our citizens that we hear them, we're concerned, and we're trying to do something about it. And I don't have the answers, Mayor. If I did, I'd certainly share them. But I just think the citizens just need to know we hear them, we're concerned, and we try to do something about it, and this is what we've done.
No, totally understand and definitely agree with you. We'll get with the police department to send, we can get that data for you and send it out to the members of the board. Just some quick data, just so Chief Helton shared this a little bit before, as led up to July 4th. Here's the reason why we implore residents to utilize the email address, utilize not calling 911 because there's an inordinate amount of calls in addition to the normal 911 calls. So last year, there were 240 calls on July 4th. As it relates to July 4th, I believe actually the news reported, and I'm pretty sure that the police department shared it with the press, because after that, I believe it was somewhere around 190 plus calls. So it was down a little bit. We do think the PSA from the fire chief, police chief, and Director Green with 911 helped, but again, it still was around close to 200. We saw a bit of a dip. We can get you that heat map of where those calls came from. Being that I was out and about around July 4th, I can tell you I saw fireworks in every area of the city, whether it was West Little Rock, whether it was College Station on the Little Rock side, whether it was on the east side, downtown, of course. And so we saw it all. I don't think there's any area in the city of Little Rock did not experience the fireworks. I do think we have to understand that our officers are being called to, violent crime, nonviolent crime as well, and so that's the priority. I think at the end of the day, now being here 4 years, and this is a constant thing, short of having officers man those areas and not man the violent crime areas, I don't know what the answer is. Besides, I think we have to seriously think about some alternatives. I think people jokingly say, well, why do we even have the law if everyone's popping them, right? And so there may, and again, I'm just off the cuff, we may want to think about, is there a need for it? But in that same vein, I will say that the chief of police and the Little Rock Police Department, I do believe that PSA helped reduce from 240 to somewhere around 190. So that's progress, but that's not zero. I don't think we ever get to zero. I think that's being dishonest to the public that we'll get to zero. But I do want to give a shout out to the police department because this too made the news. They stopped some, what I would call the selling of fireworks in the city, that we believe that, I think they may have stopped 4 or 5 van loads of fireworks on the streets of Little Rock and got that stopped. And so that may have contributed why it went from 240 calls to 190. But, I think the city board, we have to seriously think about, do we need to have the law against it and just, because it's happening, and because I don't think we take our officers' eye off the ball for fireworks when there's violent crime. And I think, that's gonna always be the priority during those days. But again, we can get you that heat map, and we got some decisions to make, because we've had this conversation every year. While I've been in office and anybody else has been in office, and so we got to really make that decision.
Well, thanks, Mayor. I just, I thought it was important.
No, I totally agree
that the citizens here our thoughts about that, and I appreciate you sharing that with me. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I know you probably got a lot of calls in your area, and it wasn't the fireworks at the River Market. Director Wyatt.
Thank you, Mayor. In regards to the fireworks, I think we have to keep in front of us the injuries to people and also the fires that are created from the fireworks. I don't know if we have any information that we can quantify that with our heat maps to understand that, because that's the reason that we have the rules about fireworks is I know in Pecan Lake, there was a house caught on fire from fireworks, and I know there's a number of injuries that happen at the hospitals and things. We can quantify the injuries as well. I wanted to piggyback on Director Richardson's comments. He's absolutely right that these apartments that we're worried about today, we've been worried about them for quite a while. And a few years ago, and I'm sure Bruce can tell us when this was, but we felt like that apartments were a detriment in the city. And so we had a study that was done. And they looked at the apartments in the city and said, no, they're an attribute to the city. But what they didn't look at were apartments that were 25 and 30 years old. That's where we're seeing the issues today. So we have been concerned about them, still concerned about them. It seems like it's time that we really address how we can improve the quality of life for people that live there. The last time we talked about this, we talked about a difference in how we approach the property owners. One of them was to talk about going, I think it was circuit court as opposed to environmental court. Have we made any progress in that determination?
I think that was a question for you, City Attorney.
Do what?
Was that a question for Tom? Or
Possibly. I think Bruce was saying that we should have been going to circuit court.
Director Warwick, I know that there's a strong feeling that you just take it to circuit court, but just taking it to circuit court really isn't as easy as it sounds. We can go after a public nuisance. We cannot go after a private nuisance. That's one thing. We have to get ownership, and we have to get the documents to figure out who all is involved. And these aren't owned by John Doe. They're owned by X Corporation, which is a subsidiary of Y Corporation that's located in California, and then we get into other things like that. So it's not a simple matter. We are looking to try to find something that we can do, but then you've got Big Country Chateau and you've got Bradford Estates, or whatever it's called now, and in both of those, they're doing things where receivers are being appointed, and the receivers are going to look at this, and their interest is, what's the best way to get out of this legal issue, which is about the debt? And it's going to be close the apartments and tear them down, close the apartments and sell them, or whatever. And we really don't have anything to say with that. Part of the reason that the state of Arkansas is that way. It wouldn't be this way in New York. It wouldn't be this way in California, and it wouldn't be this way in Oregon. But in those states and in Texas and many places, they have really powerful laws that allow local governments to step in and do things with rental property. But when you say rental property in Arkansas, it takes on an agricultural background because we're a large agricultural state, and leases of land and leases of an apartment are sort of seen in the same light. Nobody wants something on a lease of an apartment to somehow impact the ability to lease land and grow crops. And I think that's the historical reason that we have had the problems we've had in Arkansas with the law. But yes, we are looking at all of these things. I've got my staff working on it. It's not going to be overnight. One of the things I tried to set out in the memorandum is the ultimate answer to the question of what can we do is going to depend upon what you're willing to do and what are you willing to spend. What steps are you willing to take? Bruce mentioned a minute ago that we can get a voucher from the federal government. That's going to be a relocation for 6 months, but then they have to relocate 6 months again. And one of the suggestions that was made in the memorandum is maybe we can do something different from that now and start working in it that way. In answer to your direct question, no, we haven't gone out and filed an action in circuit court because we've got certain ethical obligations before we can file a lawsuit. In terms of what are we going to do, I think we need to sit down and have that discussion.
And what does it take to have that discussion? Are you talking about the board?
Yes.
Discussion? Okay. I think there's a number of us that are ready to make a difference here, make it, because these couple of, Bruce, how many's on your list that you're looking at?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
How many apartments are you all looking at on an every basis? I'm talking about units, not total apartments.
Yeah, it's multiple pages, including residential units, but mainly apartments, and mainly in a very concentrated area.
Okay. Are there 10 or 12 or 20
Oh,
apartments?
it's probably 30.
30.
And what I'm going to do, and I hadn't talked to the mayor about it, but I'm just going to add for a policy discussion, fireworks 2024.
That's fine with me. And I would say this, we can have a policy discussion. I think what you're hearing is just really, Mr. Moore and the team they're dealing with the practical and the day-to-day of dealing with the enforcement. Our city attorney is dealing with the legal portion of it. I think what I hear our city attorney saying is he's just, one of the recommendations Mr. Moore saying is let's just take people to court. I think the city attorney may be saying in so many ways, and I'm not speaking for him, so he'll definitely say yes or no, but he probably just wants a board policy saying this is what we're going to do. And that way, he'll operate from there. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, I am never going to say you're incorrect in public at a meeting. I agree.
Well,
It seems.
with that being said, Director Richardson and Director Wyrick, if you all will co-sponsor a ordinance or some type of policy, ordinance or resolution rather, with that indication, I think we can move forward. Since he's not going to disagree with me in public, and I appreciate that.
Happy to work on that, but I know Director Richardson and I will need some guidance on how to develop an ordinance, but.
Well, I think our city attorney would develop that for you.
Mayor, may I say one thing?
Yeah. And board members, because you all have continued to have this conversation, I think I want to be prudent with you all's time. You all I think we all want to just start intensifying our enforcement from a legal standpoint. What the city attorney needs, and based on the recommendation Mr. Moore sharing from a day-to-day standpoint, is a resolution that's directing or instructing, all things considered, if it's legally able to do that.
set up a protocol, so if we get into these
You just say,
situations,
you
we
concur.
know we can handle it this way, this way, this way. Understand you're going to have different widgets, you're going to have people from California, New York, et cetera, which will create some investigation on your part, but if we set up a framework on how to deal with these as we go, I'm thinking, I could be wrong, I'm thinking that a lot of these are going to be in Ward 2. I'm not hearing from other parts of the city. It used to be Ward 7,
I think you're right. It's Ward 2 and 7 and possibly 1.
some in 7 as well. But I'm happy to work with Director Richardson on
I appreciate that.
because, as I said, we've tossed this around for a long time. And it seems to be those that hit the 25 to 30-year mark is when we start seeing a lot of problems. And that's about the time they're paid off. You know, their loans are over. And the decline of the property is what we're seeing. So, yeah.
All right.
Just tell us when.
Thank you.
Ken, I'll be ready.
She'll be ready. So I think what you've heard, Tom, is to prepare a resolution sponsored by Directors Richardson and Wyrick, instructing the city attorney to take on the legal strategy dictated from the CAPS program that Mr. Moore was sharing on how we take it straight to the district court.
I think the objective would be not to shut apartments down or close them or destroy them, but if we set up the protocol for these as they hit that benchmark, that age factor, then maybe we can prevent them from getting into a Big Country Chateau or Arcs or Arms or St. John's, Spanish John's, et cetera, whatever the names were. And the people would have a good quality
No, I agree with you.
to live. That would be the method, was to prevent them from getting to the shape they're in now.
Correct.
And I think, Mr. Mayor, that Director Wyrick is correct, that the only people that are still staying there are people who don't have other places to go, and whether it's by financial means or whatever, the only people there are there by force, not choice. And I think Bruce said something that really that stuck out to me when he said that there are some commonalities, common denominators with these apartments that we're talking about, and the social ills. I'm adding the social ills part about the social ills in the immediate environment around there, where you have some common denominators that are, I think, public safety issues for us that we should not and could not expect the police to solve. I think there was community building as a public safety strategy is one of the ways we just address public safety, and I think those are some of the common denominators that Mr. Moore made reference to. You look at these apartment complexes that we're talking about, you have a number of them in areas where we have a disproportionate number of convenience stores, liquor stores, and convenience stores that sell liquor, food deserts, financial deserts. So there are a number of other factors that we can consider as a board as if we address public safety through community building to address those social ills that are producing the conditions that we're seeing. And I agree, BJ, we're not talking about necessarily looking at tearing them down as a strategy, because that would increase it actually make our homeless problem even worse, because the only people there right now, I guarantee you, there are people who are there by force, not choice. If they had other choices, they would leave. I promise you that. And we hear that and we see that. So tearing them down and demolishing them is not an answer. That's not a solution. I think a lot of times we look at, when we do demolition of homes and condemnation of unsafe vacant homes, we look at demolishing them as a solution. That's not the solution. That actually sometimes adds to the problem.
Thank you so much. Director Pack?
Thank you. I have just a few comments and requests. The first one has to do with some of the tornado-related areas. I know Sunderland has finished now, and I can't applaud Public Works enough for the last couple of weeks making sweeps through the areas. I know that Walnut Valley had 92 homes that still had debris that needed to be picked up. I attended their HOA meeting last night, and they are concerned because there's still areas that have been missed. In some instances, Sunderland, just in the last couple of days, picked up part of it, but then pushed some major debris back far into people's yards. They're going to have to hire people or equipment to get it back to the curb again, and it's my understanding now that they'll have to pay for these things. So I am questioning or asking, I'm begging for these people that we waive the fees to have tornado debris picked up in these areas. And I will say that John Honeywell cautioned me early on that this was going to be a long process, and it is, and I understand that, but I just don't feel like it's fair to charge these people who have done everything they can to try to rebuild and get their things curbside to be picked up. There's a particular problem in Walnut Valley. There are several homes where the insurance adjuster hasn't even come out, and so they've been told not to touch the things. There's just a lot of unusual situations, and I drive through there at least every other day, and I would like us to entertain that notion of in a legitimate area that was impacted by the tornado, where there is debris and they have done their due diligence to get it where it needs to be, that we waive those fees. That's number one. And the second thing that came out of that HOA meeting, there's still looting going on. There have been 6 arrests. There are some license plate readers now, as well as cameras. And one of the residents actually called me on Saturday and had a video and license plate numbers of 2 individuals in a woman's home. She's not living there. She's elderly. She's been told not to remove anything until the insurance adjuster gets there. I mean, it's been 3.5 months. It's absurd. But the officers that responded didn't take that information. I called Chief Helton, and I cannot say enough good things about Chief Helton. He and Major Farley and one other individual actually came to the Walnut Valley meeting. And so he took that information, but I know those patrols are ending, and Chief Helton was very honest about it. He's just got to reallocate some of his resources. They're so short in the police department. The neighborhood understands that, but I'm talking about the debris more than anything, and that there's a handful of houses that cannot be touched yet because of insurance reasons. So can we entertain the thought of not charging for us to pick up tornado-related debris? I've talked briefly to Director Webb about this.
Yeah, I don't think we're at that point now. I think at this point, we still have, they're still conducting the final sweep, and the monitors are still coming to see what is left. So if it's still out there, our contractors are still out there, so they're not being charged for it at this point in time. And so I think after we still have to go within this FEMA process. I think once the final sweep is done, and let's see if there's still more out there. And I think we could definitely entertain that, look at that then.
Well, that's good to know, because I thought we had made the final sweep. So it's ongoing?
So yes, ma'am. Well, no. So based on how we do our FEMA reimbursement, we share with the public that it's their responsibility to get it to the end of the curb by, I guess, June 25th was the day. Escapes me the actual date. It's out there for those individuals who've gotten it to the end of the curb. Then our private contractors are going around the city, well, not around the city, but in the tornado affected areas, picking those up. Then there's another contract, there's a monitor. And the monitor comes behind, takes a photo to say it's gone for our FEMA records. Once they check that box that it's gone, then they move on. So they're still going through that process right now. That was the reason why the urgency of getting it out for that. So if at this point, no one's being charged if this getting picked up we haven't had the final sweep yet.
Okay,
They're going through the final sweep right now.
That's reassuring, because there's still a lot out there. So I will report that back to the people in Walnut Valley specifically. I'm sure there are some other areas as well. That's the primary thing I wanted to talk about. I think I can save this thing for next week, but I'll just ask this question. I think I know the answer. And this might be for Director Collins, and I don't know if he's here.
He may be gone. He might. Director Collins.
Or Bruce will know the answer.
He may be still back.
I'm sure you will know. So this is not even in my ward. This is in Kathy's ward, but it's very close to me. So there's about a half-mile to three-quarter-mile stretch on Cantrell between pretty much Steinmart and Mississippi. And we just had a sign put up on another building by a big car wash that it was the 5th smoke shop, vape shop in a three-quarter-mile area. And there are also 4 car washes in this same tight stretch. I mean, can we have a moratorium on smoke and vape shops and car washes? I mean, I am sort of oblivious to it, but I hear about it so much, and it's just become smoke and vape shop alley and car wash alley. And I'm nervous because there's some property for lease signs, and I think some damaged buildings are not going to be redeveloped, and I can just see that continuing. Can we do anything about that? Or if it's zone commercial, they can just do whatever they want to do? Can anybody answer that?
I mean, the city board can definitely, if they want to, you all want to pass the ordinance to do a moratorium. I mean, that's possible. I would be hesitant on.
Am I the only person that?
You risk
agree.
takings being claimed, and then we pay the people for not having a smoke shop or a vape shop. Now, that's the umbrella answer, but the more specific answer is that, you know, you just mentioned a certain amount within a certain area. If we can look at that, get adequate numbers and come up with a reasonable moratorium so that we can deal with the placement of these or a change in the ordinance for the placement of these, we can justify that, but we can't just put in a moratorium.
Right, I understand that. That makes complete sense. I see you over there smiling at me, Kathy, because you said you can't do anything about it. But I thought I could at least ask the question, just because I know that there's, in that stretch there are a lot of empty buildings. And it seems like every other one now is a smoke or vape shop. I mean, seriously, there are 5, maybe a 6th one, and it's just, why do we need that many smoke and vape shops and car washes in a three-quarter-mile area? It's just...
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We'll now go to Director Adcock, and then Director Hines.
Mr. Collins is here too, Mayor.
I think she got an answer.
Okay.
Director Adcock?
Yes. We had this same problem back in the 90s with the apartments and everything, and we did rental inspection, and that kept a control over it for all these years until we got to the pandemic. And we are not doing the systematic rental inspection that we did back in the 90s and the early 2000s. That, to me, is the #1 problem that we have. And we need to go back to rental inspection. We need to look at the needs in the housing department. We are about 40 inspectors short in the housing department. And until we do the same thing that we did with the police department, we're not going to solve the problem. And that is to look at the wages that we are paying the inspectors, the housing inspectors, the rental inspectors, because we're not going to get people that takes these positions and do that job for the little that we're paying them. In Little Rock, we have about 39 mobile home parks. 35 of those are in southwest Little Rock. We set up an inspection of these, and there's a sticker that goes in the window. And so we go by, we inspect them inside and outside. We put the sticker in the window. That has not been done now in about 4 years. That brings in $80,000 a year revenue that we're missing out on by not doing it. The #1 reason we're not doing it is that about 90% of the people living in those mobile home parks are Latinos. About 80 of them are undocumented. About 80% to 90% of them do not speak any English. The 2 people that we do have that does inspections on mobile homes, neither one of them speak English. And they would tell you, you cannot go up to a mobile home, just like any home, and knock on the door, and you cannot talk to the person that answers the door, particularly get inside their mobile homes. We have mobile homes in Mr. Moore, and the fire chief has attended the ones at 8414 Stanton Road. They have been in court for 3 years. I've asked Tom to please get them out of court. When I took the fire chief out there, he looked at it and he said, we expect people to live in this condition in our city. And you have children playing right across the street from that. Those places, the windows are out of them. There's no doors on them. It's the biggest ghettos you've ever seen in these mobile home parks. And in my opinion, until we look at systematic rental inspections, we're not going to solve the problems in the apartments or in the mobile homes. So while you are studying this, Director Richardson and Director Wyrick, look at the pay that these people are getting. I think it's just a little above what pay we're asking to pay the city board members. So they had different people. I think that they told me they had about 7 people that spoke Spanish that was going to do the inspections in the mobile homes, and they all walked off of the job because there was so much pressure and so much that they could not handle seeing on a day-to-day basis. So we've got to go back to what we did when we put in rental inspection. We have the same problems now that we had back in the 90s, and we solved it by going in systematically and inspecting these properties. Someone tonight said something about, well, we call it St. John's. It's a village at 65th Street. I reported that a few months ago when we started with Big Country. And what we found out that time, they had no gas. They didn't have gas because there were so many leaks in that gas line that when they hooked it up, the gas started spewing out, so they had to discontinue it. And nothing has ever been done to go back and make them fix the gas line in that apartment complex. So they can't cook, they couldn't heat. They have trouble with the water lines over there having holes in them and flooding the complex. So we do need systematic rental inspections in both mobile homes and in apartments.
Director, I'm going to just say, you said we were down 40 code officers. That's not true. We probably are at the capacity of the number of vacancies that we have. So we don't have 40 vacancies. I don't want people leaving here thinking we're down 40 code officers. Now, that
Mr. Moore,
said,
that was a number that one of your code officers gave me.
well, we're not down. I look at the numbers weekly. We're not down 40 code officers. Now, could we utilize more code officers? And I think that's going to be a discussion that the board has in this fall as we look at the 2024 budget. But the last example you gave is just the one. It's been in court for 3 years. And if you want to talk about, and I've talked about it a lot of times, you all have talked about it. If you want to talk about the frustration of the individuals that are out there doing their job, who are giving notice and then giving a citation, and then 3 years later nothing happens, that's not our branch of government, and it's not. And there's nothing we can do besides what I've suggested before, is get them out of environmental court and take them to circuit court and let a judge say, okay, you got X number of days to fix this up, or you got to do something different. And we don't do that at all.
Until we do, Mr. Moore, we're going to continue to go down and down and down. Southwest Little Rock is becoming in some areas a real ghetto. And we need to look at it and say, is that what we want our city to look at? I spent 2 hours with you out driving around and showing you all the problems that are going on in our city. And that's what people want us to do, is to get out here and clean up this city and clean up this housing, apartments, mobile homes, single-family homes. We can do all that we want in big things, but we need to do the little things to keep this city clean.
Director Hines.
Motion to adjourn this meeting, go to agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it. We'll now go into the agenda meeting. Members of the board, if you have any questions on items 1 through 13, Director Hines.
Thank you. Mayor, on item resolution 1 on the engineering for Michael Baker for phase 2 of Bowman Road Improvement Project, what area does this cover from what terminus to what terminus?
Mr. Honeywell or Mr. Grant? And Ashley, if you just ask everybody who's in the overflow room just to come out here so they don't have to. There's no need for overflow right now.
Sorry about that, I was hustling. Director Hines, this Bowman project, it's a planning or design contract. It goes from Cherry Laurel to Brody Creek Trail is the section this will design.
All right, thank you. So this is all for design, pricing.
Yes, it gets the project to a state where we can then look for funding sources.
Is this going to involve, I know we've had negotiations with a property owner between Cherry Laurel and what's the next drive?
I know there, yes, there'll be
For the
conversations.
realignment of this?
Yes.
You know, we've had offers from this to do a public-private partnership to train right away, that they would do a majority of the work, and I want to make sure we're considering that because it's a considerable savings to the city if he will do that work and we can come up with a land swap. So is all of that being taken into consideration by the engineering company?
We will do that as part of this project.
Thank you.
We'll have those conversations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, item number 2. Mr. Honeywell, I'm used to when we're looking at drainage projects, looking at engineering firms and everything, and I was a bit concerned when I looked at this and the contract went to a lawn service. Can you explain, is this not our typical drainage problem that we're going to use a lawn service to fix it?
No, ma'am, that just happens to be the name of the company that's doing this. They are a legitimate contracting company that's a contractor. They'll be doing a construction project. They have the correct contract licensing to do this work, and this will also be the 7th construction contract that they've been awarded from the city in the last 3 years.
Okay, I think also that they got a contract for item number 8. Does this item not take some special equipment or anything either? It's a landfill pump station.
Oh, that's a different company. That's Mac Mechanical Company.
Well, there's another one that they got that, no, okay, 8 was on my list that I
Yes, ma'am.
had.
Number 8 is a company that we're replacing pump station equipment. So it's mechanically based. So this company is a company that does that type of construction work, replacing the pumps in the actual pump station out at the landfill.
Okay, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Peck?
John, I have a quick question. Director Honeywell. First of all, Little Rock Recycles Day was huge. I don't know if anybody was paying attention. It was Saturday. There were like 400 cars in 4 hours, which brings me to my question, because people ask me, when is the Green Station going to be open?
Hopefully here anytime soon. We're doing some hiring for people to actually take care of it and be attendants at the Green Station. And then we have some utility connections that still have to be done that we're working out with Energy as far as getting electrical power to the facilities there. So hopefully here very shortly we'll have that Green Station open and operating, and we plan to operate it. In the past, it's only been 1 day a week, and we're looking to have it multiple days a week when it gets open. So it won't be a 1 day, it'll be at least probably 3 to 4 days a week that it'll be open.
Well, yeah, I think that Little Rock Recycle Day was so busy because people had been hoarding since the Green Station.
Yes, ma'am. And we got some information today on quantities and some of the info from that Recycle Day that we'll be putting that out shortly. So
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Director Adcock?
Yes, Mr. Honeywell, number 8, if you look in the synopsis of this, it says a contract with the Positive Results Lawn Services. So for the Mack Mechanical Company. So they represent the Mack Mechanical Company?
Oh, I think that's a typo. That must be a typo, because it's MAC is the company doing it. That's a typo in the write-up. I apologize for that.
Okay, thank you. I thought I was reading right.
Yes, ma'am.
Board members, any questions on items 14 through 22? Director Hines?
Yes, item 18, I think both these are going to be items 18 and 19, both planning. Jamie, on item 18, very familiar with this property, this upgrade in zoning to C3. Are we going to have any restrictions? So we've already had one convenience store going on the other corner. We're about to redesign, we're about to fix this whole intersection. I'm hoping we're not going to have another high traffic corner added. Has there been any, the applicant, are they saying what they're potentially going to do with this C3 zoning?
Currently, they are not, Director Hines. And you are correct, this is for everybody, this is the southwest corner of the intersection of Bowman and Canis, just on the south side of the Lowe's. It is a small tract of land, Director. Its limitation in use outside of a standard C3 is going to be set by the operation of it. Because they are going to be at the intersection, so full access on both Canis and Bowman, if redeveloped, then what is there will be limited. They won't be able to have full access. They're going to have to choose one to be in and out, and it may be both right in, right out if redeveloped. And then also the setbacks off the right-of-way, if redeveloped, will limit that. So any development other than what is there right now, since they are already impacted, will, for more purposes based on probably variances, will either be a planned development or some other type of use once something is presented, if it cannot fit. So I understand your concern of the intensity at the intersection, but I think just their size of their tract is going to limit a lot of those uses being able to be done there.
This doesn't take into consideration the property south of that, that's the old Kwanzaa hut, correct? This is just for that?
No, that is just for that old cookie shop.
I'd like to hold this separate, please. Mayor. And then on 19, this application, I imagine, is going to be, since it's in the ETJ, but contiguous, they're going to annex in after it's done. Are all Boundary Street improvements including in this development?
Yes, they have not requested any waivers.
Okay, All right, well, I mean, I'm not going to, I'm going to have an objection if they do. I just want to make sure it's included because hopefully we'll get most of that work done by private developer.
And it may be that one of these depends on the timing of when this development comes in and our bid type scenarios. That could be a good in lieu type contribution amount. Instead of performing the widenings, if we're coming through and doing it, that could be a good in lieu contribution if we have not had it bid yet.
Right, well, I mean, we don't have any money to do the widening of Candace in that section, so I fully expect the developer to pay for this as
I understand.
I mean, an in lieu contribution ain't going to cover it, I can tell you right now. All right, that's all I needed, thank you.
Director Adcock?
No, I'm finished.
Director Adcock?
No, my hand is down.
Any questions on items 23 to 24? Any questions on items 23 to 24? This meeting is adjourned. Eve.